Now, after the appraisal is over and the credit appraiser or the underwriter or the loan officer has decided or determined based on all the checks and documents that he has looked at what amount of loan, if at all, he can give to a customer, there is a concept in many organizations called the maker and checker. This credit appraiser, underwriter, loan officer is the maker. Now, again, like I said, this might vary from organization to organization, but a checker typically is a peer within the organization, probably in the same department, who ensures that there has not been any aspect of the appraisal that the individual credit officer has done which has been missed out or overlooked or not factored into the decision. So whether the documentation was appropriately collected, whether the mathematics and the calculations in determining loan eligibility was right, whether the term was for what the policy said. So for example, if I go and give a 15-year loan to someone who is retiring in 7 years, that is an aberration that either needs to be corrected or justified. Right? So these are examples of what the checker will do. Whether the EMI, of course nowadays EMIs are calculated straight off a system, but in the good old days whether the EMI has been calculated correctly, whether the interest rates have been charged as per the policy, whether there are any pending documents that need to be submitted which have been listed, and any fees that might not have yet been collected. So the maker prepares all this and the checker typically looks at all these factors to ensure that nothing has been missed out either deliberately or inadvertently. Now once this is over, we move to the actual sanction process. The sanction process, as I said, is that yes, a particular customer, a particular file, a particular couple or a particular co-applicants are eligible for this amount of loan. I have done the appraisal, I have done all the documentation, and you put it up for approval. Now, who takes the decision to actually approve? Now that depends upon each lending institution. So let's quickly go through the process itself and understand how it happens. It might vary from institution to institution, but the concept is still the same, that it gets approved. And the larger the ticket size, the more senior or more number of people have to approve. So it's possible that you might get 2 people approving a loan, or you might get a particular regional level or a zonal level or a head office level senior person approving a loan, depending on the ticket size and if there is a deviation from the policy which still is being recommended for an approval. So once the maker-checker concept is over, which is otherwise called the double checking, at the double checking stage, if there are any queries, then it goes back to the individual appraiser who then sorts out the queries. If there are no queries, then the file goes for sanction. Now like I said, when it says goes for sanction, nowadays the physical file need not move, it's all on the system. So the person who is authorized to approve this loan or sanction this loan, whether it's one person or 2 people, like I said, depending on the ticket size and the deviations involved, they will get on the screen a snapshot of what is called a credit approval memo, or otherwise called a CAM. The CAM is prepared by the underwriter, and that CAM is a summary of the recommendation that the appraiser is making and the double checker has approved based upon the appraisal that was done. Remember that the legal appraisal and technical appraisal have not happened and need not happen at this stage, because the sanction is for the loan amount and the terms of the loan, the interest rate, the number of years, the special conditions, and any pending documents. So once this file goes to the approver or the approvers, and they can be different levels, will either approve the loan based on what they see, or they will ask for a query. They will ask a query to clarify a particular aspect of the loan amount or a particular assumption that the appraiser has made, or whatever. They can ask any question on the appraisal process or the appraisal documents or the appraisal mathematics. That query then goes back to the appraiser, who either gets or the applicants or provides it himself depending on the nature of the query, and that clarification goes back to the approving person. The approver can then either approve, ask another query, or reject the file. Of course, if he rejects, then there is a process by which the credit appraiser or the loan officer can re-present the case clarifying the concerns that led to a rejection, or the approver can approve the loan, or alternatively might approve it with some different terms and conditions. Maybe a lower term, maybe a lower interest rate, maybe a higher interest rate, maybe a different loan amount. Once that is over, then two things happen. One, most organizations now will send an SMS or an email to the customer saying that your loan has now been sanctioned. The reason that is important is because if the person has not yet selected his property and is waiting to take a decision on which property to buy depending on the loan amount, this is the trigger. He now knows that he will get a loan of X amount, and therefore he can look for a house of an appropriate budget. A sanction letter is also generated and sent to the customer. That sanction letter lays down the general terms and conditions, but most importantly gives the loan amount, the term, the rate of interest, the fees payable if any, and any other documentation that is required to be submitted before asking for disbursement. This completes the sanction process. The second module and the next module is the pre-disbursement work, that is before actually taking disbursement, and it also is linked to the actual disbursement itself.